The death of video game journalism. Is this gonna be a video about failed political pundits who were forced into games journalism because they couldn't do anything else, and they proceeded to destroy the industry because they hate themselves? Sounds like it.
Welcome to the beginning of the end of video game media, of video game websites and guides and bloggers and journalists and the whole 9 yards. And to be honest,
guides are not going anywhere. The strong will survive. Maxroll will survive. Wowhead will survive. All of the places that actually make stuff that people are looking for will survive. But shitty sites like IGN that do a guide that's nothing and just wants you to scroll down, those are going bye-bye. And good riddance.
a lot of people have already been talking about this, but it's been such a dry conversation because they haven't been focusing it on the people that matter the most, which is you, the viewer. The one that's consuming that content to begin with, that's reading those articles, that are watching videos like this or looking up guides and hints and things like that. Instead, the conversation's been around people losing their jobs and layoffs and how hard it's going to be to compete against AI and the prevalence of AI.
No one cares. Literally no one cares. This all started with a bunch of loser artists being, no, I'm an artist, I'm special, AI can't replace me. Look at this amazing drawing I drew that my mom put on the fridge. And then she said the dog ate it, but we don't have a dog. I absolutely feel no pity for a single person that calls himself an artist, demands that he is treated special because he is an artist, and then he loses his job. Good riddance. Go grow up, loser.
AI taking over these jobs, and nobody cares. At the end of the day, we are selfish creatures that care about ourselves more than anything else, and we want to know how this affects us. And for the most part, most of us see this as, well, I can't trust these people to begin with. Get rid of these journalist losers. They've screwed me over more times than I can count. I don't blame you for saying that, but this...
Hey, that's what you get for trusting journos, okay?
This does affect you. And to be honest, it's not good. Paul Tossi over at Forbes writes an article titled, IGN buys 4 major gaming sites as games journalism keeps spiraling. IGN Entertainment, owned by Ziff Davis, has now bought the entire gamer network of brands, which includes at least 4 of the highest profile gaming sites left alive in the space, and stakes in others. The purchase includes Eurogamer, GameIndustry.biz, Rock Paper Shotgun, and VG247. Then shares in Outside Xbox, Digital Foundry, Nintendo Life, Push Square, Pure Xbox, and Time Extension. The move has already resulted in significant redundancy layoffs of acclaimed journalists across the brands as...
What do you mean acclaimed journalists? How are they acclaimed? Huh? How are they magically acclaimed?
They are absorbed into the megasite. While consolidation is generally not great in any industry, games journalism is especially...
No, consolidation is great in every industry. You kind of need to do that. Otherwise everything goes, you know, belly up in the water, which is not great. Consolidation is the best thing ever. I love consolidation. I have survived every consolidation I have ever been in my work career. You know why? Because I have literally no fears ever. Unless a bigger company absorbs your company and you're one of the big positions in the smaller company, in which case, well, you're probably fired, though. Being good at your job is not going to save you then. But unless you're not one of the absolute top figureheads, you're probably surviving consolidation without any problems and getting a raise and everything. Because if you're good, that's what happens. Trash gets consolidated out. It's just the way of life, baby. The strongest survive, and I love it.
Struggling, as moves like this are only going to make things worse. Mid-level or smaller sites are already fighting against YouTube and Twitch, and for visibility against YouTube's increasingly actively hostile search policies, which now include AI ripoffs of their articles as of last week. But now you have
do people not remember that Google tried to do this AI thing like 2 or 3 or 4 years ago? They already tried to do this. Everyone has forgotten about it.
A site like IGN owning 5 major brands that can populate the entire link list for a given topic, in theory. And Paul's absolutely right by this, because if we go to Google and we search Summer Games Fest, in the first 10 results, we get Rock, Paper, Shotgun, VG 24/7, Eurogamer, and VG Charts, all of them under this new IGN umbrella. Now, I think it's pretty obvious to see how bad of a thing this is, because that means that they have full reign and authority to be able to control whatever narrative that they want, because...
Yeah, but if you care about their narrative to begin with, I think you have already failed, so I don't care. Let them do whatever narrative BS they want. No one's gonna care.
IGN was already the most viewed video game website on the internet. They were the biggest leader like across the board. Now they own the other biggest leaders. And there's not very many other ones that are out there, and they can just go ahead and buy those too if they really wanted to. And the problem with that is that they can make or break games or mislead us as they want to. And I know some people are going to probably sit there and say, dude, that doesn't matter. I watch YouTube videos. I watch Twitch streamers. I don't read any of these articles or anything like that. I don't trust IGN or Game Informer.
Has worked for me all my life.
Eurogamer or whoever. And while that's cool, realize that the vast majority of information that YouTubers, Twitch streamers, or whoever else gets is coming from these sources, because they have more connections and resources than we do, and we don't have the kind of ability.
Yeah, that was the obvious take. I mean, it's true. Yongya literally just reads Kotaku when he does a video. And then I watch Yongya read Kotaku and make fun of his communism takes. But, you know, still. A lot of people do get that information from that. But again, it's a dime and a dozen. And the people who get that information from that to make videos actually sort out through a lot of shit. They don't go just, well, some of them do. There's always going to be situations where someone does that, but you know, most of them, they just don't look at any random article. And most of us, while we watch those videos, we think for ourselves, and we just don't blindly believe everything read or said. If something is going to go against something that I know, I'm going to look into that a little bit more. And if all the, you know, great journalist news sources are going to tell me X, but I know it's different, I'm just going to not trust them. And, you know, everything is fine once again in the world. I don't see this as a big problem. I see this as a big problem for Yongya, though.
Ability to be able to go and talk to some of these developers and get insider information and be able to share it with other people. We have to get it from a source first. And now that source is being corrupted, which means the information that we're getting is...
Oh, also, I don't care about this. People have brought up also this point a lot. I don't believe it to begin with. Okay? The reason that a lot of people are using, for an example, Anthem here. Oh, without these game journalism news sites, we would have never known how bad Anthem's development was. Well, we see the final product that Anthem was shit. So we can easily assume, one, that the development process for it was very bad. We can already assume that. Two, no one exactly cares how bad the development process for Anthem is, because who cares at this point? Three, if there was no Kotaku, no IGN, where someone who wanted to tell their story about how bad developing Anthem was, they would just go to a YouTuber. Because YouTubers can just have these conversations. They can talk to them, they can retell them, they can do so many things. Without games journalism websites, we would still get all of this information. Only it would be exclusive YouTuber scoops instead of exclusive whatever journo site scoop.
Is also potentially at risk, and that's a problem. And while we can try to do our best to have journalistic integrity or video journalistic integrity, I don't exactly know how that works, but we'll try to do our due diligence. At the exact same time, there's going to be some situations in which we're going to be misinformed because these companies are controlling the narrative. And the other problem is too, is that while what Paul says when he's talking about how Google's algorithm is actively hostile towards these brands, he's not wrong, by the way. This problem is getting worse, and it's not just the games journalism, it's also just AI and these websites in general, because if you guys have searched for anything lately on YouTube or searched for anything lately on Google, you'll notice that you're getting very curated results very quickly, And one of those things is that I haven't even had to look at any video game wikis anymore, because if I type into Google, hey, how do I get this one thing, or where do I farm this certain item or weapon or whatever it is, Google just straight up tells me without me ever having to even look at a wiki in the first place, which then drives the ad revenue down for those websites and then makes those websites not able to exist. And if those websites don't exist, then Google can't get the information to be able to display it to us. So it's a vicious cycle that's only going to get worse. Paul Tossi continues with, while this is the latest move, we have other smaller ones in the past. Fandom bought GameSpot, Giant Bomb, and even Metacritic, the all-important aggregator, back in 2022. The Gamer Network, that's with a U so we know it's for gamers, has over a dozen publications, including Destructoid, The Escapist, GamePer, and Twinfinite.
Okay.
There are some big-name sites that are relatively standalone, or at least the only gaming site in their network. Polygon seems to be the healthiest, perhaps, while something like Kotaku seems constantly on death's door with a skeleton staff that's trying to fight against its poor private
Kotaku deserves the worst
equity management. Elsewhere, there are major brands like the New York Times and Forbes in the gaming space covering the massive industry that make it harder for smaller sites to compete. But even there are problems.
Bro, I still remember the days when Forbes was a reliable actual source of news, and I'm not talking about gaming. Now Forbes is just garbage for everything.
The Washington Post recently called almost its entire gaming vertical cut down to more or less one guy. Hi, Gene. Consolidation sucks in general, and he kind of brushes over it, but using Metacritic as a great example, when they were purchased by Fandom, I threw Metacritic out the window because I viewed it as compromised, because it's now owned by a company that owns video game publications and journalists that review games, and then they get to control and curate what those scores are, whose scores they include, what scores they don't, how those scores are tallied, and everything like that. And then they get to play whatever tune they want to get us to buy whatever.
That's why we never have paid any attention to critic scores, okay? If you look at the Acolyte currently, it's almost sitting at a 100% critic score. What a time to be alive, boys. What can I honestly say, right? And then you look at the audience score, and at this point, I would be not that surprised if it was below 20. The critics have never mattered.
They want us to buy, and I don't appreciate that.
Also, I am in general completely in favor of a world where people just get to look up the information that they think matters to decide decisions for themselves. I am very in favor of that world. I do not like the idea that someone just summarizes everything you need to know about something and then you blindly follow that decision. I am always 100% against that.
That's not something that I want, so I pretty much only use OpenCritic from time to time, Steam reviews, or the eye test, and watch somebody else play it to see if it's something that I'm going to like playing. And that sucks, because that means that there's less places for us to be able to get more information for us to make educated purchases. And obviously, if you guys have watched any of my videos in the past, that's something that I'm a big fan of. And one of the other things that Paul brings up, and he's talking about these bigger gaming sites or these bigger publications in general, and he's talking about, you know, the New York Times or Forbes. And what's really funny is with Paul's article specifically is anytime there's any big, huge gaming news, their website is almost always at the top, specifically because Forbes is such a high traffic site to begin with. It's a respected site. It's been around for many, many years, and it's used for all kinds of different things. And as such, it's going to be ranked higher in any search result. And what sucks about that...
Trusting Forbes is like trusting the Washington Post to tell good things about Amazon or Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos owns Forbes, not Forbes, but the Washington Post, if you did not know. And suddenly, magically, when he bought it, the Washington Post instantaneously was kind of like, oh, Jeff Bezos, he's a cool dude. Wow, what a time to be alive. 10 out of 10.
That is that when you start putting more and more of these publications, more of these higher end publications at the very top, then that means the smaller guys don't really have much of a voice. They end up dying as a result. And then now you're left with just a few opinions. And as these companies continue to lay off and get rid of people, well, that's a problem too, because now there's less voices and less types of opinions at these companies. And you're only getting, as an example with Forbes, you're only getting one or two guys' opinion, and they start sounding the exact same. He gives the example of another publication that really only has one guy. Again, now you only have one voice at that entire publication, and now you're starting to get a bit of an echo chamber across all
Okay, and why would I need to care again?
All these companies, especially as they can.
I'm just not gonna take my information from them. Again, I'm completely fine with searching up YouTube Let's Plays of that shit and seeing if I like it. I'm completely fine with all of this. I don't need... I don't understand this obsession with people saying that, oh, we need some kind of magical site that's gonna tell us what to think. I don't like that.
Consolidate. That sucks. That's not good in general, because now we don't have access to the variety of opinions that we once had for us to be able to discern and come up with opinions of our own and make educated opinions as a result of that. If you look at any of your favorite YouTubers or Twitch streamers or whatever, one of the reasons why we have the ability to be able to come up with the opinions that we have is because we go through and we read a bunch of these articles, we watch a bunch of different videos, and we try to get as many different opinions as possible, as far to one side or the other, to try to find where...
That's actually a lie. That's not how real life works. Usually people get that opinion from one source, and if they like it, that's it. They don't want to check even another source. This is fundamentally incorrect. Fundamentally. People just find a source that they like, and as long as that source tells them what they want to hear, they're completely fine with it. There's no such thing as, oh, I'm gonna go watch 20 different YouTube videos about X to make my own decision making. Nah, they just watch the YouTuber they like the most, and if that YouTuber says the things that they like, well, shit, that's good enough for me.
Where we want to be in the middle. You know what I mean? But one of the other things that I have a problem with too, and he doesn't really bring this up, but I think it's going to be a really big issue, is that as more and more of this information becomes difficult to attain, it's going to make it difficult for new people to get involved in content creation, regardless of wherever it is. If it's YouTube, Twitch, on journalism or bloggers, whatever it might be. And the reason why I say that is because if gaming media continues to die off the way that it is, well, then YouTubers that have access to these developers and access to that information are going to be the only ones that can actually control that information. And everybody else just going to have to react to whatever they say. And that's just not something that's good. But
you see, this is, man, I never agree with anything he says, do I? Wow, it's like an Asmongold situation, but better, because he does say very smart things. So this whole position he has is just a fallacy. He's currently saying, oh, but if a YouTuber controls all the information, then it's gonna be bad. But we already, by your own description, are pretty much living in a world where instead of a YouTuber controlling all the information and the narrative, it's controlled by a site that has one guy writing all of the articles. So what's the difference here? There is none. In reality, there is none. The only difference is he kind of wants to appeal to that, well, this isn't just psychologically, this is called an appeal to power. If a cop tells you to do X, you're probably going to do it way more likely than just some rando on the street tells you to go X. If a doctor says you should use this, you're probably going to listen to him more than, you know, a random rando coke addict on the street. Probably. Unless your question was which coke is the best. It is what it is. So this position to have is a complete fallacy to begin with. It doesn't make sense because you're advocating for the same thing, but just for a different person, and nothing really changes. The floodgate is still there. It's just controlled by a different person.
In terms of the Google algorithm or YouTube algorithm, or just healthy for creators in general. And channels like mine, smaller channels like mine, wouldn't be able to exist if it wasn't for the fact that these publications and opinions have been around, because if all of this information was being controlled by...
Well, yeah, he's saying that, but is that necessarily a bad thing? Like let's be real. If his channel didn't exist, would that save 1 million people's lives? Or would that forsake 1 million? No. It doesn't... In this conversation, the fact that smaller channels would not even exist? Rainy. It doesn't even matter to begin with. So, again, this argument doesn't even hold water. It's pointless. Your channel doesn't exist if they don't exist. Okay, so just don't exist in that case. Not a lot was lost. If you couldn't do the reacts, would this channel exist? No, I would just continue to do the Magic channel only, and that's pretty much it. It's not a big deal.
Skill Up and Gamer Ranks and, you know, IGN's YouTube channel and things like that, well, then I wouldn't have as much to deliver to you because I wouldn't have as many opinions and variety of content to be able to look through and wade through and bring to you. Paul continues with something interesting, saying that there is a public war against the games journalists by, in part, the anti-woke crowd who believe that progressive-leaning outlets are going extinct because of allegedly activist takes.
Oh, this is 100% true. Woke is a thing. Again, I hate this concept, you know? Anti-woke people are gonna, you don't even know what woke means. Well, yeah, describing woke is technically kind of hard, but you know, if woke doesn't exist, why are so many people magically just pointing their finger at one thing and calling it woke? Why do things that get labeled woke are the only things that get labeled woke? Woke is real. If it wasn't, we would just be pointing the finger at absolutely everything. But we don't. The finger kind of magically always gets pointed at the same things constantly over and over and over and over again. Which means woke is real. Yeah, sure, actually defining woke is kind of hard and tedious, and probably would require me 5 minutes to explain, because also the definition changed from person to person. But yeah, a lot of these progressive-leaning outlets are getting destroyed because they are woke, because they are pushing messages. They don't care about real life. They don't care about statistics. They don't care about gameplay. They just care about the fact that there's a message in it. And that's pretty much it. Remember, Stellar Blade bad because woman a character too hot, but Hades 2, literally naked Aphrodite, good. And why is that? She even got called empowering and shit. The naked Aphrodite. Well, that's because the Hades developers are a part of that message to a certain degree. They support certain political beliefs, so them inserting a naked hot woman in the game is good. While Stellar Blade not supporting these political leanings and having a hot female protagonist is bad. That's what woke is, and that's what destroys everything, because everyone clearly can see that there's a major contradiction there, and it just does not logically track.
And there are also console fanboys who are constantly ripping outlets for allegedly favoring one piece of hardware over another, or lambasting them for inconsistent.
Oh yeah, that's true though. The console fanboys are insane.
Opinions across dozens of writers who have diverse viewpoints.
I still remember the comment how one Xbox fan said to me, maybe you shouldn't talk bad about the Xbox users, because we are the majority of gaming, and it's not smart to make a channel about gaming where you're not a part of the Xbox community, because we are the... how about you find a way to remove yourself from the gene pool?
In short, when you bring up the layoffs and general destruction of the industry, the reaction from gamers is often a disheartening, good, they deserve it.
Yeah,
I need you to pump the brakes there, Paul. See, I like being able to have access to a variety of different opinions. It gives me the opportunity to be able to contrast my perspective.
Okay, so he's talking about here a variety of different opinions, aka left-leaning, right-leaning, this, blah, 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 and that. You can still get it. There's still YouTubers that are completely psycho leftoids. There's still YouTubers who are completely psycho right-wingers. You're just not gonna have a news site that's dedicated to it. Again, I don't think this conversation makes any sense, honestly. I don't think this conversation should honestly even exist the way that it's going.
With the perspective of hundreds or thousands of other people, and allows me to be able to distill my opinion down to something that I think is...
There's hundreds of thousands of people also on YouTube.
...educated and worthwhile. But with that said, we can't say allegedly activist takes when they are purely activist takes, purely pandering, purely virtue signaling more than anything else. Look at half of the dialogue that was around Stellar Blade or Baldur's Gate 3 at one point. How about the fact
Oh, I don't even remember the one about Baldur's Gate. But yeah, there was something stupid about it.
that Polygon put out an article talking about how Helldivers 2 was making people fascists? Come on, man.
Good. Good. Let's go, boys.
Look, I'm not going to sit here and cry, and I totally understand why people are cheering on the fact that some of these folks are losing their jobs.
Oh, you're a nist. You're a phobe. You're a this, a that. Why, thank you. I appreciate a compliment. How did you know I'm a man of culture? Very nice.
And some of these publications are going out of business because they have spent their time actively trying to pander
That is what it just ends up with.
to an audience that probably doesn't even exist. And if it does exist, they're not even interested in that content or in those games in the first place. And then beyond that, they're spending the rest of that time talking down to an audience that put them where they are in the first place. No, I'm not going to cry for them, nor should anybody else, because they're getting what they deserve for doing bad business. They compromised their own integrity. They compromised their own work because I have to look through 7 or 8 layers
Now, to be honest, did they have any integrity to begin with is a question.
of biases to be able to see what a rude opinion is anytime I'm reading any of those articles. Half of it is just there for engagement purposes, clickbaiting, and rage baiting more than anything else. Fuck them. Paul concludes the article with, "It's almost all bad news. Many former big names in the space either fled to PR, game development itself, or have fashioned their own independent entities like Kinda Funny Games or the recently formed Aftermath. Others have realized that you yourself sort of need to be a brand with a big social media presence, a paywalled newsletter, or your own YouTube/Twitch space to draw a consistent audience. This is essentially what I've done for the last 2 years especially. It's hard to see things getting any better. I feel for my colleagues who are enduring this sort of thing essentially every
I do not.
month at this point, and I feel like the recent Google AI push especially is a Mad Max dust storm on the horizon, poised to blow everyone away for good. God help us all." What I want you guys to take away from this is that there's a lot of different things that are going on, and there's some of these companies that wholeheartedly deserve to lose their business. There's journalists that are out there that totally
Yeah, and there are people who don't. It is what it is. Anyway, getting bored. Family. 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 There we go. Anyway, that was Legendary Drops. 10 out of 10. Quasar says in. Bye.